I've got something to say.
I've got something to say.
I've got something to say.
Yes, I really do have something to say.
I have a whole lot to say.
Sure, I've got something to say.
I've got something to say.
I surely have something to say.
I've got something to say.
Then say it. Contact me right here, right now. Thank you.
I got something to say. With Dr. Netreia Carroll leading the way.
Hey, welcome to I've Got Something to Say. Hello. Guess what, guys? We have someone today that's really going to just kind of open your ears and your mind a little bit to something that has been going on for quite some time in this place, in this world, and it's just like been pushed under the rug or neglected to be talked about. And so I want you to meet my guest, and I ask you guys to receive him, and I'm going to allow him to introduce himself. Is that okay? Got it.
My name is Reverend Dr. Jerry Moore Sr. For the last 24, almost 30 years now, I've been working in the rape and sexual assault world. What I primarily did was continuum of care for the victims, going to the hospital, walking through the forensic exam with them, helping with police questioning, and being an advocate for them as they went through the sexual assault process. In the last 5 years, my focus has changed though. I'm changed more now to male-on-male sexual assault. Even more specifically, non-incarcerated heterosexual male-on-male assault.
And now is that happening quite a bit?
Absolutely. It's very, very prevalent. But the problem is it's being deemed now as a crime of homosexuality. It's been lined up with basic other sex crimes, child molestation issues, and more importantly, they take it as a homosexual issue, which by choice is not.
So is the conviction with it the same, or? The
conviction is actually the hardest thing to do because at this point, there's only 10% male reporting. Only about 10% of men come forward, and those that then come forward, very rarely do they describe themselves as heterosexual or homosexual. But the fact of the matter is, most perpetrators of the crime don't deem themselves as heterosexual or homosexual. Rarely do you hear it as a homosexual act. And in most cases, I've never personally had a case out of even Hillcrest in our gay area of town, the LGBTQ area. What we see is the males are afraid to come forward because of the epistemologies of the stigmas that go forward, the perceptions, the myths, and the stereotypes that go around male rape.
Right, but are the people that are being raped, are they actually practicing that kind of life, or?
No, that's not.
So they're not?
No, they're very heterosexual, and many of them are, again, alcohol's in about 90% of your cases, alcohol is going to be involved. Then you'll find that some of it is just forcible. And the perpetrators basically just see it as a power and control issue. It has nothing at all to do with sexuality.
It's hard for me to imagine that with a very, very strong man. How is that happening? Because when I think of a man, I think of strength. It takes, is it 2 men maybe? It takes strong strength to be able to take something from another man, I think.
That's the perception, and I've very rarely seen rape in concert where it's more than one person. Many occasions it's an intoxication issue where they get them intoxicated. You'll also see where it's kind of a setup. They'll take them out, enjoy the times with them, having a good time. Generally younger men, but you do see it in older generations as well. And they enjoy a good time and they get them intoxicated. They'll slip drugs in them just like what they would with a woman. Wow. And they engage in sexual assault with them, violation.
So what are these? What is the main objective? What do you want people to know in regards to that thought?
What I need people to start realizing is, one, we have to recognize it as a crime within itself. It's not a whole-centered crime, whereas you have males, women raping males, males raping women, etc. We need to look at the male portion of it as a single entity, because it is so prevalent now. It's keeping men quiet because of the stigma that I'm going to be deemed homosexual, that nobody's going to believe me, and as you stated earlier, I'm supposed to be able to protect myself as a man. That's the perception. But I've seen also male rape where a woman has actually raped a male.
How?
Well, it's very obvious, and some of them, you'll see a larger female and a smaller statured male, and she basically dominates him. In one situation, I know young man couldn't perform, and when he didn't perform, she would either burn him with a cigarette, stick him with a knife, and on this particular occasion when I met him, and this has been years ago, so nobody will recognize this case openly now, she poured a plate of hot spaghetti on him, big pot, And that's how she would make him perform. He was afraid to come forward.
Wait a minute. Now, y'all have to forgive me. Y'all know I got to understand. Okay, when you say make him perform,
Yes.
to me, in order to perform, something got to happen there.
There should be sexual
right,
arousal.
but the spaghetti is not. How does that cause him to respond?
That was actually just a punishment because he
Okay.
wasn't able to perform.
Okay.
And unfortunately, this had been happening over a period of time. When I first came into the purview of understanding male-on-male sexual assault, I used to be a drug and alcohol counselor. And we would have small groups with people talk about issues that are going on with them, their drinking behaviors. And one man, his disclosure was that I had been sexually assaulted, and I didn't know how to tell anybody. I didn't know how to come forward or receive help. So he kept it in and he acted it out through the drugs and the alcohol. So what we ended up having to do was actually at one point we had some groups that were called adults molested as adults. But they're very hard chapters to keep open because once the men come forward and disclose it the first 2 or 3 times, then the fear factor comes in on what people are perceiving them
What
as.
generally needs to happen that encourages a man to speak out? What is the...
What I'm seeing now, and in my study that I just did, my dissertation was actually specifically in that area. And what made them come forward, one was anger. The other was fear, and then the wanting to expose the world to things. So there are some people that just want to say, listen, we're open enough society where we should be able to talk about these things.
Yeah, but for a man, that's a lot. And I'm not a man, but I can understand the way of his making, the pride of his making. That puts him in a submissive position.
Absolutely, and when you start dealing with a male's testosterone issues, they actually make a harder victim to treat. Even when you go into the forensic room with them for the forensic gathering process for the rape kits, or when you go into just a counseling session with them, they always feel like they're being judged. There's the fear, the anxiety, the humiliation that goes along with it, and the perception that I have to have some connection with homosexuality.
So what are some of the steps that they go through as far as their healing process?
Right now, there are a few groups out there. There's a few men's groups out there. I don't want to mention them by name because I haven't had their permission.
Okay.
But what they do is they'll come forward and they'll share the experience they've gone through, and then we try to team them up with counselors. I actually have done quite a bit of counseling with male victims myself because as my ministerial role, they know I have the confidentiality.
Okay.
So we're able to openly discuss the conversation, but then I try to send them to some form of mental health services. And there are quite a few mental health services available. They're just not being used.
Wow. So when we're dealing with the man going through what they're going through, and there's, okay, for instance, there's somebody watching today that's actually being a victim to this, or have been a victim to this, or still involved in being a victim to this, and they're afraid to speak out for the sake of embarrassment. What would you say to them?
I would say to them that the longer you hold it in, it's not ever going to go away. It's going to be that haunting figure in your background. You'll see in the military where young men will go in the military because they were molested as children or as early adults, and they say 1 in 10 men have been sexually assaulted. 1 in 10. Last year, 2010, the FBI reported 93,000 male-on-male sexual assaults, but that's only 10% reporting. So what we have to get out, we have to get a social mind around. The men have to be able to come forward. They have to find a place of respite where they're going to feel as though they're actually going to be cared for and not judged, because that's the biggest issue. We have to stop the judgment.
So the judgment is the biggest problem.
Absolutely. And when men hear that, just as we were talking earlier, and you actually said when a man in the testosterone and they should be able to protect themselves, that's the exact feelings they have. The exact feelings they have. But now that that's been taken from me, power and control has been deemed over me, it's just fearful to come forward.
Well, it's kind of like that's kind of how they were taught from growing up.
Absolutely.
You know, boys are not supposed to cry, and so that pride about them, along with their testosterone,
And bravado.
makes them who they are. And you're almost asking them to, in their minds, switch over their roles, even though they're not living that type of life. It's totally against everything that they believe.
Absolutely. When you talk male bravado, you'll see a lot of acting out around that. That's where you see these young men that are intoxicating themselves, getting into physical confrontations, over-aggressive with women, because now I'm trying to get my testosterone back. I'm trying to find my manhood again. And that's what makes them also a harder victim to take care of.
So they actually lose something. They feel like they've lost who they are because of the act.
Absolutely.
Yet they know that it was the wrong thing to do. They still lose who they are.
Absolutely.
What are some of the things that you guys do or offer to pull someone out that's in that situation?
Right now, the society has not opened up enough to where people are feeling comfortable coming forward. That's why our numbers are still very low. But there are male sites online. There's quite a few male resources online, and I can tell you those offline. But they can go to those individuals. There's forums where you can openly share, blog groups. But then the problem with that is having aftercare. We must continue to continuum of care once they've come forward, because now that you've released all this information and you've told your personal story, you have to have someone that's going to be able to assist you, help you, care for you, and make sure that you feel valued again.
And about how long is that process?
That process could take actually a lifetime, unfortunately, because it comes in stages. Just like you hear the 5 stages of guilt and anger, frustration, all those things, the person, once they become comfortable with what happened, now they have to live a syndrome, just like women, it's called rape trauma syndrome. Very similar to post-traumatic stress disorder, but it's rape indicated, and when it's rape indicated, now you've got the issues of sexuality and all that to come into play.
So what is the next step? Once they admit to what happened, they go get psychological evaluation, they get past the part of being judged. Is there another part of the process for the healing?
It's a lifelong process, actually, because what needs to happen first, if it's been early enough in the assault, then we want to actually get a forensic exam done, because that forensic exam,
how
you can
embarrassing.
preserve it. And it's actually more intrusive for a male than it is for a female, because it's intrusive for a woman because obviously she's being exposed to the world, but it's more of like going in for an OBGYN appointment for a woman, except the trauma's different. For a male, they go through the same process as a woman, and it's very intrusive. That by itself scares people off. You're plucking pubic hair, you're scraping fingernails, you're doing oral swabs, you're doing anal, rectal swabs, all these things. And that by itself is very humiliating.
That's very humiliating.
But once we get past that, now we have to put a continuum of care in place where they've got a counselor that's open 24 hours a day when they need to talk about it. Relationship conversation has to take place now because, again, they'll either work it out as trying to be overly aggressive as a male, or some just become really reclusive and sink back into privacy.
Okay, what happens to the perpetrator?
Many of the perpetrators are rarely ever caught, for one. But two, the bigger problem is when they are caught, it has to now be proven. That's where your biggest problem is. If the perpetrator said that it was, let's say, rough sex, the victim says that it was sexual assault or rape, now you have a he said, she said. So who do we believe? Even with the forensic exam, all the forensic exam says is that sex occurred. So you're going to have the
So now
residual.
the one that is the victim has to prove that he does not practice homosexual living, which how do you do that besides bring a bunch of people in? So that men could just rape each other and pretty much run off?
Yes. And actually, because I'm separating it from homosexuality, I'm not trying to lessen it for the LGBT community, because I'm certain it happens there as well. But because we've connected it to a homosexual act, the male now doesn't have anybody that has that believing process. The biggest issue, I think, is the first initial responders. Police officers is critical. That judgment look that they give them when they see them, when they're telling their story. The forensic SART nurses, sexual assault response nurses, are awesome because they put them at ease, they talk to them, and the most powerful person is the victim advocate. How the victim advocate engages them as soon as they come into their world is going to help them in the healing process that much faster. In fact, what we try to do from a victim advocacy standpoint is we want to take them from being a victim to survivorship. If we can talk survivor, people tend to tie in more and want to feel like they can be, well, prolific in society again and add something again.
Okay, tell me this. When you're in the room and someone has come in that's a victim, their posture, their face, their way tells a story.
Yes.
What do you see?
You see a lot of pain. The first thing you're going to see is the pain of it all. Then they're actually going to assess you to see how you can care for me. On more than one occasion, I've gone in with a victim, and the first question they'll ask me is, how can you help me if you haven't been assaulted yourself? Well, that's a conversation you don't want to have with them, because what they'll do now is deflect that conversation back to your assault, almost comparing, and you'll start talking about your assault to the point where we forget about their assault. And they want to turn counselor and they want to try to assist you, but that's not helpful. There's no recovery that way.
Right. So is part being a counselor to them, one of the qualifications is that you had to be a victim yourself?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
In fact, if a person has been a victim of sexual assault, when I interview or screen that person, I'm very in-depth on what happened to them. Because the last thing you want is your person to go in and relive their assault. When you're sitting here talking to this person and watching the experience they've gone through, if you relive your assault, you've just re-victimized them.
If I, as the counselor, relived my assault,
Yes.
I'm re-victimizing them.
Yes, because you're no longer there for them now, and it turns into a care process, because they're going to start asking you, well, how did you get through it? How did you take care of yourself? How are you doing with it now? And most people have stowed it away in compartments in their mind, but once you open that wound again, it's just like a scab. When you peel it, it starts to bleed again.
How do you get them to understand there's nothing to be ashamed of?
We talk to them about, again, taking them from victim to survivor. And one of the things I've very commonly told a victim is, you know what, you are one of the most beautiful people I've ever met in my life. You have gone through an experience that most of us cannot even fathom. But now you've come forward and asked for...
You know, there's got to be a solution or a way or something that we could possibly do to help fix this problem, because if not, it'll lead to probably drugs and suicide and whatever else. What do you recommend that we do next?
I think the most important thing we can do is put it back in the scope of the society, get society looking at it again.
And how do we do that?
We've got to start talking about it, just like when we did the awareness of women being sexually assaulted and we made it an issue where people would now start talking about it publicly. We have to do the same thing for men, and we have to put resources in place that they can go forward to. There are quite a few male-on-male sexual assault groups out there, very few that are specific to heterosexual males though. So we need to get public awareness. We need to, I'm thinking about writing a model for training so we'll know exactly what the first responders need from the police officers, victim advocates. Sane nurses already know what they're doing, but make it out a public cry now so the public hears that this is actually a crime that is taking place. And open it up for people to be more comfortable.
Do you have a recommendation for someone who's just like, this is totally new to me, and they're hearing you say this is what we need to do? Do you have a recommendation for a starting point?
I would recommend that if they've been assaulted and it's rather recent, and I say recent within like 12 to 24 hours, contact the police department immediately, because that's going to put them in the track with the forensic nurses. That's going to get them over to the hospitals, like Palomar Hospital takes care of forensic cases for us, and now they'll have at least a start. From there, we have referrals that will send people to different counselors or different areas and give them a list that they can choose from themselves.
Gosh, when you say police, it just seems like a harsh start for me. It seems like there should be some type of compassionate something that's more, because, you know, when you think of police, you think of hard, you know?
Well, but they actually have a sex crimes unit, and the sex crimes unit are very well trained in the care of individuals, although they do get jaded after seeing it so much. But it also, by law, they're the ones that maintain forensic kits. And because now that you've done a forensic kit, it becomes evidence.
Got it.
And they have to do an interview with the individual as well. That's separate from what the forensic nurse does.
Okay, tell me a little bit about the interview, because I know there's some people that are taking your advice, but they're afraid to get to that interview. What are they going to talk about?
The interview is very intensive. They're going to ask very personal questions. They're going to ask if you've engaged in any type of sexual act with anybody else in the past 12 to 24 hours. If you did, they're going to get as in-depth as to asking, was there anal, oral, vaginal sex? Was there ejaculation on, in, or around your body? Many perpetrators will masturbate the male at the same time, and it messes with their mind as though they enjoyed it.
Bring that back. Help me understand that piece.
They'll masturbate them as they're sodomizing them, because now that the person has reached an orgasm just based on the prostate and its location alone, they'll masturbate them and they'll have an ejaculation, which makes that element of like. You'll see it a lot in children, too.
But how does... Well, maybe men are different, because for a woman, if you don't want it, stuff ain't gonna happen.
Right. Then that's
how
why
do they
you have the
get?
damage.
How do they get? Well, anyway.
Well,
it's possible.
Absolutely, and it's very intensive, especially when you start talking a person that's been molested as a child, because that element of like has always been there, and the curiosity will remain.
Even if you're being a victim.
Even if you're a victim, because at some point that element of like plays into it, where you did feel something good out of it. It did have some form of pleasure, which messes with the mind, because now I have to question, am I homosexual?
Oh.
And that's very, very, very prevalent with perpetrators. So the police department has to give them enough care, compassion, to get them to the forensic exam. Once they get to the forensic exam, actually the exam is very intrusive, period. There's no way other to say that, because they're going to ask you all about your sex preferences, what you've done in the past few months, what you've done in the last 24 hours. Because let's say you had sex with your consensual partner and then you were raped or sodomized within that 12 to 24 hour period. Now you're going to mix those two together as far as telling the story, because it'll be so confusing, especially with alcohol intoxication, that you don't really recognize what you've experienced.
Now, do most of the people that come in, are they still intoxicated? Or?
Yes, and that's very important as well, because if a person is intoxicated, no forensic exam or anything can be done until they sober up. So we have to sit with them. That's what your advocate does. The advocate will sit with them, familiarize themselves, get some type of rapport going until they're able to speak on it.
What about the ones that come in that are not intoxicated?
Then the forensic exam will start immediately, because when you have to, it's best to start the forensic exam as soon as possible so you can get any trace evidence.
Right. Tell me about the psychological damages between someone who comes in as an alcoholic and the other that comes in as straight.
When a person comes in as non-alcoholic, generally the whole gamut of shame, guilt, humiliation, fear, all the perceptions all come in. Those epistemologies I talked about earlier of being not able to care for yourself, you were possibly not a victim, or was I a victim? So all of those things are going on in their head. When you talk about a person that's intoxicated, on most occasions, they don't remember what happened to them.
How do they know that they were a victim?
Well, because the feeling that comes after being assaulted, just like anybody can feel that they've engaged in a sexual act, the same thing will happen with that person. They'll wake up with soreness, or on more than one occasion, we've actually found the person and their pants will still be around their ankles or something of that nature. Male victims are interesting too. I want to just say this real quick. Most male victims won't say, hey, he sodomized me as well. They'll generally say, I got beat up. Now, once the forensic exam starts, then they'll say, can you have them check this area for me?
Wow. So, but if there's something that happens that causes them to break that, what is that? Just being comfortable with whom they're talking to?
It has a lot to do with the comfort level that started from initial contact. As soon as that person comes forward and says something happened to them, the individual's first responders have to be engaging enough and caring enough to not push blame. Don't ask questions like, where were you at? Why were you dressed that way? It's no different than a woman. The perpetrator has set them up. And they'll set the most beautiful scenery for them. You're playing music, you're listening to TV shows and doing things in common, and they're building that fake trust in them. And then the person has been victimized. Now the trauma starts because I put myself in that position.
Do you ever find one that's struggling with wondering, am I gay now?
Absolutely, that's huge. And I'm gonna shift that for just a second, because this will be very knowledgeable. When you talk to a person that's been incarcerated and they've been sexually assaulted or raped in prison, it's very common for the perpetrator to get out of prison and resume a normal heterosexual life. But the male that's been raped or sexually assaulted in prison, they struggle with sexuality again. Some of them actually cross over and just, now I feel I'm homosexual, and will actually live that lifestyle.
Wow.
Yeah, it's confusing, but they'll still live that lifestyle.
Wow. So with someone watching, because the show's about to end, and the show's about bringing awareness and to encourage people to come out and speak if they're a victim, what compassionate line of words could you share with them?
I would say, you survived it. You're not a victim any longer. Let's get you to survivorship. It was not your fault. You were violated. There are enough people that care enough about you, and you can find it through clergy. You can find it through resource centers and male websites for some people that are more comfortable. And personally, I'm open for conversation on it anytime. If a person wanted to contact me and we just talk privately, I prefer that they don't do it in person first, because then we'll be able to build a rapport without me actually looking into your eyes and trying to adjust to whether or not the shame and the judgment's there.
How would they contact you?
I have my email. My personal email address is my name, Jerry Moore, JerryMooresr @gmail.com. Jerry Moore Sr., JerryMooresr @gmail.com. That's my direct email address, and I'd prefer to go that way instead of phone conversations, because now I can get a scope of what they're dealing with and try to find resources to have them available at the same time when they come from the interview.
Okay, do you have a time limit that you respond, or?
I try to get back to people. I get my emails on my phone. Now, I teach during the day, and I have somewhat busy evenings, but if I notice that it's a sexual assault issue, I will try to get back to you no less than in 30 minutes.
Okay.
If I have to take a break or whatever I'm doing in the middle of it, I will try to get back to him within 30 minutes, but I never let it go longer than 3 or 4 hours.
Okay. Well, guys, that was a mouthful. Listen, what he's talking about is something that is really not new, but because of all the laws being changed, where you can just marry and, these type of things are coming out to the forefront. And the one thing that I would like to share with you is this, that you don't have to be ashamed about what you have gone through. It was myself who became a victim for 30 long years because I was ashamed of what happened to me, and I felt like I was living in a world all by myself. And so I too began to fight back. I didn't turn to drugs and all of those types of things, but I became a new dancer. That was my outlet. I was mad at the world. I was mad at God, but I want you to know that God never leaves you nor forsake you, and His grace and His mercy follows you, not just because you sin. His grace and His mercy follows you because He loves you. And so I just want to encourage you to just put the thoughts and the ideas of the world down. Don't worry about how someone judges you. Be like the woman with the issue of blood. She didn't care about how people thought about her. She pressed her way through until she got into the hem of Jesus' garment. I guarantee you, if she could have just jumped all over Jesus and touched every part of his cloak and garment and whatever it was, she would have done all that. But all it took was for her to just touch just a pinch of his garment, and her whole life changed. And so I want to encourage you to just find that pinch and find your way, press your way through, and allow God to send people your way, to send the comfort that you need and the encouragement that you need. But first, you have to make the first step. Step out. People like him is waiting on you. And after him, guess who is always there? Jesus.
Amen.
You guys have a good one. God bless.
Thanks for joining us on I've Got Something to Say. For more episodes, tune in to NDC International Network on Roku. Thanks for watching.